Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. This entire week we've been doing D&D movies, and it's all been leading up to this one. The 2023 Action, Adventure, Comedy, Fantasy, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Also, this is a heads up, spoilers will be discussed. Here is your trivia question for today. Who was the surprise celebrity cameo in this movie? The answer will be at the end of this video. The film starts with Ed and Holga needing to get out of Icewind Dale and over to Neverwinter. They are trying to get Ed's daughter back and get some revenge on a wizard and a rogue. Now, like any good Dungeons and Dragons adventure, they make some friends along the way, and now their group consists of a bard, a barbarian, a sorcerer, a druid, and a paladin. And now it's up to them to hopefully save the day. I loved absolutely everything about this movie. The way that the monsters looked, the way that they had representation of different races, the way that the magic worked and was incorporated, and of course, how they used magical items. And speaking of magical items, if you didn't notice that everyone keeps handing them over to Simon, it's because he actually is in possession of a bag of holding. I also really love the reference to the 5-foot squares that you have to use in Dungeons and Dragons combat, which they showcase here in the arena fight scenes. Also, speaking of references, here's some ones you may or may not have noticed. A pretty obvious one is for the D&D animated series from the 80s. One of the other adventuring parties that's in the arena with them is dressed exactly like that group. Here's one you may not have noticed. There's a reference to the 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie where Snails gets pulled into a quicksand rug, just like how both Holga and Ed do. There's even a small reference to the widely popular live play D&D show Critical Role. If you didn't notice, Simon the Sorcerer casts a spell early on in the movie where he makes it smell like fresh cut grass. This is in reference to the character named Fresh Cut Grass in the third campaign of Critical Role. There are also a few characters in this movie that are from original D&D source material, like Elminster. In the movie, he happens to be a descendant of Simon the Sorcerer, but he's actually an incredibly powerful mage that has appeared in quite a few editions of Dungeons and Dragons. You have Zaz Tam, who obviously is going to be coming back in one of the sequels if they end up making them, but is a very powerful lich in the D&D lore. And of course, there's everyone's new favorite chubby buddy, Themberchaud, who is actually a big fat dragon from the actual D&D lore. Now, this movie could have been quite different. In fact, Chris McKay was offered the director's seat at one point, but he decided to do The Tomorrow War instead. Another possibility was Rob Letterman was going to be the director, and Ansel Elgort was going to be the main character. I don't know if that means he would have been Ed, but it still would have been very different. Luckily, we ended up with these two gentlemen, Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, who, by the way, John Francis Daley started his career with the television series Freaks and Geeks. And what's funny about that is his character was really big into D&D. They even made a commercial recently where him and some of the other original cast members are playing D&D to promote the new D&D movie. This adaptation of a classic tabletop role-playing game hit every mark exactly how I would have wanted it to. Such great acting, great story, really fun and entertaining, and so many good visuals. So I am absolutely going to give this movie a 5 out of 5. As for the trivia question from the beginning of this video, who was the surprise celebrity cameo in this movie? It was Bradley Cooper. He played Marleman, who was Holga's ex. And I find it especially amusing that Bradley Cooper and Michelle Rodriguez are in this movie, mainly due to the fact that Vin Diesel, a friend and co-star of theirs, has always been a huge D&D fan, but was not able to be in it. But because he was with Michelle Rodriguez in Fast 10 and with Bradley Cooper in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, he probably was hearing it from both of them about how great it was to be in a D&D movie. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. If there's any movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe.